Have you ever wondered why people act the way they do, even when it seems irrational or self-destructive? Why some people seem to rise effortlessly while others repeatedly stumble? The answer lies not in luck, intelligence, or talent, but in human nature itself. Hidden beneath every action, every word, and every decision are patterns, emotions, and instincts that most of us never see. This book will reveal those hidden currents and teach you how to understand, anticipate, and navigate the behavior of everyone around you. Introduction: The Laws of Human Nature. Have you ever wondered why people act the way they do, even when it seems irrational or self-destructive? Humans are driven by hidden emotions, subconscious patterns, and desires we rarely admit, even to ourselves. The Laws of Human Nature reveals these forces, showing you how to understand, predict, and influence the behavior of those around you. It exposes the invisible currents that guide decisions, shape relationships, and determine success or failure. By studying these laws, you will learn to spot envy before it harms you, read hidden emotions, recognize self-sabotage, and navigate social dynamics with clarity and confidence. This book is not about manipulating others. It is about seeing clearly, acting wisely, and mastering both yourself and the people around you. By understanding human nature, you gain the ability to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively, to build trust instead of creating conflict, and to transform challenges into opportunities. Every interaction becomes a chance to observe, learn, and grow, turning insight into influence and awareness into real power. Chapter 1: The Law of Irrationality. Imagine living your entire life believing that you make decisions based on logic, reason, and careful thought, only to discover that almost every choice you've ever made was quietly engineered by emotion. This is the uncomfortable truth Robert Greene gives us in the first chapter: you are not as rational as you think you are. Humans, by nature, are emotional creatures first and rational thinkers second. Every day you react to situations, not with logic, but with a swirl of feelings shaped by your past, your insecurities, your fears, and your desires. You think you're choosing, but often, your emotions are choosing for you. This chapter explains why. Greene begins by showing how the human brain evolved for survival, not for perfect judgment. The older emotional brain came first, designed to react instantly to threats. The logical, rational brain, what we call the neocortex, came much later. But the emotional brain still holds power. It acts fast, without your permission, sometimes without your awareness. That's why people lose their temper, make impulsive choices, fall into toxic relationships, quit too soon, give up too late, overspend, overreact, or explode with jealousy. These aren't random mistakes. They are patterns of irrationality baked into human nature. Greene explains that irrationality has two forms. 1. Reactive irrationality, the emotional trigger. This is when something hits your emotional nerve and you overreact. A comment, a tone, a look, and suddenly you are defensive, anxious, or angry. Your brain interprets the moment not as it is, but as a reflection of your fears or past wounds. 2. Passive irrationality, the false sense of confidence. This form is more dangerous because you don't realize it's happening. It appears as overconfidence, wishful thinking, magical optimism, or refusing to see the facts that contradict your beliefs. You want something to be true, so you convince yourself it is true. But Greene doesn't just diagnose the problem. He gives you a way out. He calls it the rational self. It's not about removing emotions. It's about rising above them. The rational person does three things. 1. They step back from the emotional moment. When something triggers you, instead of reacting instantly, you pause. You breathe. You observe the feeling like a scientist, not a participant. You ask yourself, why am I feeling this so strongly? What fear or insecurity is this touching? Is the threat real or emotional? This pause breaks the chain of reactivity. 2. They analyze their patterns. Greene says you must study yourself like a detective. Look at your past mistakes, your emotional blow-ups, regrets, impulsive decisions. Each one reveals a pattern. Maybe you become angry when you feel ignored. Maybe you get jealous when you feel insecure. Maybe you rush big decisions because you fear missing out. Maybe you cling to relationships because you fear being alone. Once you see your patterns, you gain power over them. 3. They seek the higher perspective. Rational people zoom out. They see the bigger picture. They don't get stuck in the heat of the moment. When someone criticizes them, they don't become defensive. They ask, is there something useful here? Are they hurting? What's the larger truth beneath this situation? This wider perspective gives clarity and emotional freedom. Chapter 2, The Law of Narcissism. Picture a world where everyone walks around with an invisible mirror in their hand. A mirror they hold up to every conversation, every relationship, every decision. In that mirror, they see only one thing, themselves. This is the world Robert Greene describes in Chapter 2. A world where narcissism isn't rare, it's universal. Every human carries a degree of self-absorption, some mild, some extreme, some dangerously hidden beneath charm and confidence. Greene opens this chapter by explaining the truth we often avoid. People are not thinking about you. They are thinking about themselves. Your needs, your feelings, your opinions. They matter far less to others than you think. Most people are trapped inside their own emotional bubbles. Bubbles made of insecurity, ego, comparison, and constant self-concern. This is narcissism in its everyday form. But Greene divides narcissism into 3 levels, each one more intense than the last. 1. The deep narcissist, the most dangerous type. These individuals are emotionally hungry. They crave admiration, attention, validation. Their sense of self is fragile, so they constantly seek fuel from others. You'll recognize them because they dominate conversations. They exaggerate their achievements. They blame everyone else for their failures. They cannot handle criticism. They drain your emotional energy. Deep narcissists pull people into their orbit. But they give nothing back. Their relationships are transactional. You exist to satisfy their emotional needs. Dealing with them is like walking on glass. 2. The functional narcissist, the hidden performer. This type seems confident, charismatic, ambitious. They may even appear successful. Functional narcissists use their self-focus to fuel achievement. But they still struggle with empathy. They still take things personally. They still see the world through the lens of their own ego. These are the people who seem strong but collapse under real criticism. 3. The healthy narcissist, the empowered self. This is the ideal. The goal. The transformation Greene wants you to make. Healthy narcissists still have a sense of self. But they balance it with empathy. They can step outside themselves and feel what others feel. They don't need constant attention, and they don't respond defensively. They use self-love as a foundation, and then extend that awareness outward. This is the type of narcissism that leads to leadership, creativity, and influence. The narcissistic bubble. Greene describes narcissism as a bubble of self-absorption. Inside this bubble, a person can't see reality. They can't see other people clearly. Everything becomes a reflection of themselves. If someone insults them, they think, "What does this say about me?" If someone succeeds, they think, "Why not me?" If someone fails, they think, "How does this affect me?" This bubble distorts human behavior. It's why people are jealous, competitive, insecure, defensive, or overly sensitive. It's why relationships fall apart. It's why misunderstandings explode into conflicts. But Greene says the real power comes when you escape your bubble. When you stop obsessing over yourself long enough to see others. Empathy, the antidote to narcissism. The core lesson of this chapter is simple. You cannot control narcissists. But you can control your reaction to them. By mastering empathy. Empathy is the ability to read people, sense their emotions, understand their motivations, identify hidden insecurities, predict their behavior. It turns you into a strategist instead of a victim. Empathy allows you to see what people really need, not what they pretend to need. It helps you avoid deep narcissists, work with functional narcissists, and become a healthy narcissist yourself. Greene explains empathy in 3 forms. 1. Cognitive empathy, reading the mind. This is about paying attention to tone, expression, posture, microreactions. You learn to pick up patterns. You understand what people are thinking without them saying it. It turns you into a human radar. 2. Emotional empathy, feeling what others feel. This is about attuning your emotional antenna. You sense fear, insecurity, envy, excitement. You notice what others miss. You become someone people trust instinctively. 3. Empathic patience, listening without ego. This is the rarest form. It means listening without preparing your response. It means letting people talk, letting them reveal themselves. Letting them show you their inner world without interruption. When you master this, you uncover truths others never see. Transforming your own narcissism. Greene is clear. We all start life as natural narcissists. Babies cry for attention because they believe the world revolves around them. Some people never grow out of this state. Your mission is to transform your self-focus into self-mastery. You do this by practicing deep listening, asking questions instead of talking about yourself, observing patterns in people, resisting the urge to react defensively, challenging your own ego, learning to appreciate perspective beyond your own. The more you escape your self-centered bubble, the clearer your vision becomes. You begin to see the world as it truly is, not as your ego imagines it. And when you can see people clearly, you can influence them naturally. Chapter 3: The Law of Role-Playing. Human beings are natural performers. Whether we realize it or not, we spend our lives playing roles, shaping our behavior, tone, and appearance to fit social expectations. Robert Greene calls this the law of role-playing, the idea that every person wears a mask, presenting a version of themselves that hides their true thoughts, motives, and insecurities. This mask is not deception for the sake of evil, it is a survival strategy. Society demands politeness, confidence, charm, and control, even when a person feels fear, doubt, or envy underneath. Understanding this universal performance is the key to seeing people clearly and interacting with them intelligently. Greene explains that people rarely show their genuine selves, especially in environments where reputation, status, or approval are at stake. Instead, they adopt roles such as the helpful friend, the humble coworker, the confident leader, or the charming listener. These roles are crafted carefully, built from practiced expressions, rehearsed lines, and predictable behaviors. The problem arises when we take these roles at face value. By believing the mask, we misjudge intentions, misread character, and become blind to hidden agendas. Mastery of this law begins the moment we stop assuming authenticity and start observing the subtle cracks beneath the performance. Once you recognize that everyone is playing a role, you can begin to read the truth behind the mask. Greene suggests paying attention to micro-expressions, tone shifts, contradictions, and moments when someone's guard temporarily drops. These small hints often reveal their actual emotional state, whether they are insecure, envious, annoyed, or anxious. When someone's mask is too perfect, too polished, or too consistent, that is often a sign that they are hiding something deeper. By learning to notice these small details, you gain insight into what people truly feel but will never say openly. At the same time, Greene emphasizes that role-playing is not something to eliminate, it is something to master. Skilled role-players are more socially effective, persuasive, and adaptable. They know how to present themselves in ways that lower others' defenses, inspire trust, and create positive impressions. Greene calls this the strategic mask, a conscious, controlled version of yourself that aligns with your goals. This is not manipulation, it is emotional intelligence in action. By learning how you come across to others and shaping your presence deliberately, you become more influential, more likable, and more effective in every situation. The danger arises when you cling too tightly to one role. A single rigid identity, always the hero, always the victim, always the joker, always the sensitive one, limits growth and creates emotional blind spots. Greene encourages flexibility, be able to shift your role depending on the environment while staying grounded in your true values. This adaptability makes you unpredictable, balanced, and socially powerful. It allows you to operate with both authenticity and strategy, reading others' masks while using your own wisely. The chapter ends with a powerful reminder: to master the social world, you must see through masks without becoming trapped behind your own. Understanding role-playing gives you clarity, protection, and influence. It helps you avoid manipulation, misjudgment, and disappointment. When you learn to read appearances and respond with emotional intelligence, you move through life with far greater control, seeing people not as they pretend to be, but as they truly are underneath. Chapter 4: The Law of Compulsive Behavior. Human behavior isn't as spontaneous as it appears. Most people believe they act out of free will. But in reality, they follow deep, unconscious patterns formed long before adulthood. Robert Greene calls this the law of compulsive behavior. And it explains why people repeat the same mistakes, attract the same problems, and fall into the same emotional traps again and again. At the core of this chapter lies one powerful idea. People don't act, they react. They repeat patterns. And these patterns predict their future. Greene explains that our personality is shaped early in life as a survival strategy. A child who felt ignored becomes an attention seeker. A child who felt controlled becomes rebellious. A child who felt unsafe becomes obsessive about control. These strategies worked once. So the mind clings to them, even when they no longer serve us. The origins of compulsion. Behind every compulsive behavior lies an emotional root. A wound or insecurity that silently dictates a person's reactions. Common roots include abandonment, clinging, neediness, fear of being alone. Humiliation, anger, defensiveness, constant overcompensation. Neglect, attention seeking, validation, hunger. Rejection, people pleasing or avoidance of intimacy. Control or strictness, rebellion, rule-breaking tendencies. These emotional wounds create a mold. And people spend their lives acting within that mold, often without realizing it. 5 signs of a compulsive pattern. Greene provides 5 clear indicators that someone is acting from compulsion rather than conscious choice. These signs help you analyze others, and yourself. 1. Repetition under stress. When pressure builds, people fall back into their oldest habits. It's the clearest window into their real character. A calm person may suddenly explode. Or a confident person may crumble. 2. Emotional outbursts. When someone's core wound is touched, their reaction becomes exaggerated. Irrational anger, jealousy, fear, or defensiveness reveals their internal pattern. 3. Self-sabotage. People sabotage themselves in predictable ways. Choosing the wrong partners, ruining opportunities, or repeating bad habits. Compulsion overrides logic. 4. Extreme behavior. The more they fail, the more extreme the behavior becomes. A gambler bets bigger. A controller tightens their grip. A pleaser becomes even more desperate. 5. Predictable cycles. People orbit their flaws. They cycle through the same mistakes, again and again. Once you see the cycle, you can predict the future. Seeing the pattern behind the person. To truly understand someone, Greene suggests watching for what triggers them, what they fear losing, how they act when stressed, what mistakes they repeat, who they blame for their problems, what emotional wound they hide. These clues reveal far more than their words. People might try to appear confident, calm, or rational, but their compulsive patterns never lie. This gives you an advantage. You can see their next move before they make it. Breaking your own compulsions. Greene insists that everyone has compulsions. Even those who consider themselves self-aware. But breaking them is possible with deliberate effort. Here's how. 1. Identify your repeating problems. Look at your regrets, repeated failures, and emotional triggers. These are fingerprints of your pattern. 2. Trace the pattern back to its source. Ask yourself, when did I first feel this way? The root almost always lies in childhood. 3. Slow down your emotional reactions. Compulsions work fast, almost automatically. Creating a pause gives you time to make a conscious choice. 4. Adopt new strategies. Act deliberately, not instinctively. Choose the opposite of your pattern. If you avoid conflict, confront gently. If you seek attention, practice silence. If you control everything, learn to delegate. 5. Develop an elastic mind. Flexibility is the cure. An elastic mind questions old patterns and adapts to new situations. This is the path to personal mastery. Chapter 5, The Law of Covetousness. Humans are wired to notice what they lack. From the moment we are born, we are aware of absence, things we want but don't have, recognition we crave but don't receive, love we desire but haven't earned. This craving is natural. It drives ambition, innovation, and survival. But it also breeds envy, resentment, and destructive comparison. Robert Greene calls this the law of covetousness. The subtle but powerful force that makes us obsess over what belongs to others. Covetousness is more than just jealousy. It is the mind's tendency to exaggerate the value of what we lack and underestimate the value of what we possess. We see someone with success, beauty, or influence, and immediately, our attention fixes on the perceived gap between us and them. We feel cheated, deprived, or lesser, often without acknowledging our own unique strengths or achievements. Greene explains that covetousness can appear in many forms. Social envy, desiring status, recognition, or approval that someone else has. Material envy, longing for wealth, possessions, or lifestyle beyond reach. Romantic envy, wanting attention, affection, or admiration from someone who favors another. Intellectual envy, craving knowledge, creativity, or skill that others display. No matter the form, the underlying mechanism is the same. We focus on what we lack instead of what we can create. Covetousness, Greene warns, is a double-edged sword. Left unchecked, it poisons relationships, fuels rivalry, and erodes contentment. But redirected, it can become one of the most powerful forces for growth and achievement. The key is not to eliminate desire is human, but to transform it into productive action. He suggests 3 ways to redirect the energy of covetousness. 1. Understand the roots of your desire. Ask yourself, why am I coveting this? Is it truly about the object, position, or person? Or is it a symbol of something deeper, security, recognition, freedom, or self-worth? Once you understand the underlying need, you can satisfy it through more constructive channels instead of chasing someone else's life. 2. Focus on your own path. Instead of obsessing over what others have, examine what you can create. Redirect envy into curiosity, innovation, and self-improvement. Greene writes, the most successful people rarely compete by imitation, they compete by creating value where no one else has looked. Covetousness becomes fuel for your unique achievements, not a trap of resentment. 3. Neutralize the power of comparison. Comparison is the lifeblood of covetousness. Every time we measure ourselves against others, we risk inflating their worth and diminishing our own. Greene advises cultivating self-awareness and perspective. Recognize your accomplishments, however small. Celebrate progress rather than perfection. Focus on long-term growth rather than short-term envy. By doing this, you shift the energy from longing to strategy, from craving to creation. Greene also highlights the social consequences of covetousness. People driven by envy often act out subtly, through gossip, sabotage, or manipulation. Covetousness can corrode trust, create conflicts, and even destroy careers. The antidote is emotional intelligence. The ability to recognize envy in yourself and others, to anticipate reactions, and to channel desires into constructive action. The chapter closes with a profound insight. Humans will always crave what they don't have. This law is inevitable. But you can master it. By understanding the root of your desires, redirecting energy into creation, and neutralizing destructive comparisons, you turn covetousness into a tool rather than a weapon. In the end, the law of covetousness is not about suppressing desire, it's about transforming longing into power, growth, and freedom. Those who learn to do this rise above petty envy and create a life defined not by what they lack, but by what they produce. Chapter 6, The Law of Short-Sightedness. Humans are wired for the immediate. Our brains are designed to react, to survive, to respond to the urgent threats of the moment. But this same instinct, while useful for survival, often blinds us to the bigger picture. Robert Greene calls this the law of short-sightedness, the tendency to focus on short-term gains and immediate gratification at the expense of long-term strategy and vision. Short-sightedness appears in every aspect of life. People chase quick results, favor convenience over wisdom, and prioritize popularity over purpose. Leaders make decisions based on immediate applause rather than lasting impact. Employees prioritize tasks that are visible instead of important. Even relationships suffer when people respond to temporary emotions instead of cultivating patience and understanding. The danger of short-sightedness is that it creates a cycle of reaction rather than strategy. We respond to crises rather than anticipate them. We patch problems instead of solving root causes. We seek relief rather than results. In this way, life becomes a series of firefights, and true progress remains out of reach. Greene explains that the antidote to short-sightedness is strategic vision, which requires slowing down, observing carefully, and considering the long-term consequences of every action. It is about seeing beyond the immediate moment and imagining the future as a living framework of opportunities and risks. He identifies 3 common traps that feed short-sightedness. 1. Emotional reactivity. When emotions dominate, people act impulsively. Anger, fear, desire, or pride drive decisions that feel urgent but often cause long-term harm. The key is learning to pause before reacting, and to assess the situation with a rational mind. 2. Social pressure and herd mentality. Humans are deeply influenced by what others are doing. The crowd rewards speed and visibility, not careful thought. Short-term trends often seduce people into decisions they will regret. Resisting social pressure and cultivating independent judgment is essential for strategic thinking. 3. Narrow focus. Many people focus solely on the immediate task or goal. They ignore patterns, systemic causes, and future consequences. Short-term wins may feel satisfying, but they rarely build sustainable success. To escape this trap, Greene advises adopting a wide-angle perspective, a view that encompasses history, context, and the trajectory of events. How to cultivate long-term strategy. Escaping short-sightedness is not about rejecting the present. It is about seeing the present as part of a larger story. Greene recommends 3 approaches. Think in terms of decades, not days. Ask yourself, how will this decision affect my future self? Will this choice matter in 5, 10, or 20 years? Long-term thinking forces patience and discipline. Observe patterns, not just events. Look for recurring cycles in behavior, markets, and relationships. Recognize that what seems urgent today is often a reflection of deeper, ongoing patterns. Pattern recognition allows anticipation rather than reaction. Delay gratification. Resist the urge for immediate rewards. Focus on efforts that compound over time, learning, building skills, nurturing relationships. True advantage comes from persistence and consistency, not speed or popularity. Greene also emphasizes emotional discipline as a cornerstone of strategic vision. The short-sighted mind is often reactive because it prioritizes comfort and avoids discomfort. Long-term thinkers embrace patience, accept temporary setbacks, and use delay as a tool rather than a burden. The chapter closes with a powerful truth. Life rewards foresight and punishes impulsivity. Those who understand the long game, anticipate consequences, and resist the pull of immediate gratification can navigate complexity with precision. They create influence, legacy, and power, while the short-sighted flounder, trapped by reactive cycles and fleeting distractions. Chapter 7: The Law of Defensiveness. Every human being has a natural instinct to protect themselves. It's deeply ingrained, an automatic shield against perceived threats, criticism, or judgment. Robert Greene calls this the law of defensiveness, a universal human trait that governs nearly every interaction. People will resist what feels like attack, challenge, or exposure, even when it is meant to help them. And yet, in every personal and professional relationship, the ability to lower these defenses becomes the key to influence, persuasion, and deep connection. Defensiveness can appear in many forms. Some people react with outright hostility, while others retreat silently, withdrawing trust or engagement. Some mask their insecurities with charm, arrogance, or compliance. But the underlying motivation is the same: they feel threatened. Greene reminds us that resistance is rarely personal. It is a survival mechanism built into the human mind. The danger of defensiveness is subtle but pervasive. When someone is defensive, logic fails. Persuasion fails. Even the most well-intentioned advice can be misinterpreted as criticism. This is why conflicts escalate unnecessarily, negotiations stall, and relationships fracture. Without understanding defensiveness, you risk triggering resistance instead of cooperation. Greene explains that the solution is not confrontation. It is disarming defensiveness with subtlety and empathy. Rather than forcing someone to lower their guard, the skilled strategist creates conditions where the person willingly relaxes, trusts, and engages. This requires keen observation, emotional intelligence, and strategic patience. He outlines several ways to accomplish this. Lead with empathy, not criticism. People resist when they feel judged. Begin by acknowledging their perspective, validating feelings, and showing understanding. Empathy lowers tension and primes the mind to consider alternative views. Appeal to self-interest. Defensiveness fades when the other person sees benefit for themselves. Position suggestions as opportunities rather than demands. Show them what they gain rather than what they lose. Use indirect influence. Greene emphasizes subtlety. Ask questions instead of giving commands, suggest options rather than mandates, and use stories or examples to convey ideas. When people discover answers themselves, their resistance diminishes naturally. Mirror and match. Reflecting a person's tone, style, or body language can create subconscious rapport. Mirroring communicates understanding and builds trust, making defenses unnecessary. Avoid public confrontation. Defensiveness is amplified when people feel exposed or embarrassed. Private conversations, subtle guidance, and careful framing reduce instinctive resistance. Greene also highlights the importance of self-awareness in managing defensiveness. Often, our own ego triggers defensiveness in others without us realizing it. Sharp criticism, impatience, or visible frustration can provoke resistance. Humility, patience, and composure create a climate where people feel safe to lower their shields. The chapter concludes with a profound insight. Defensiveness is a natural barrier, not a personal attack. Those who master the art of disarming it do not manipulate or coerce, they guide, influence, and connect. They transform potential conflict into collaboration, fear into trust, and resistance into willingness. In essence, the law of defensiveness teaches that the greatest power lies not in confrontation, but in subtle persuasion, empathy, and emotional intelligence. By respecting human nature, observing patterns of resistance, and applying strategic influence, you open doors that would otherwise remain closed. Chapter 8: The Law of Self-Sabotage. Every human carries within themselves a quiet, often invisible enemy, the tendency to undermine their own success, happiness, and potential. Robert Greene calls this the law of self-sabotage, a universal pattern where people act against their best interests without even realizing it. It is the subtle force that keeps talent unfulfilled, relationships strained, and ambitions unrealized. Often, we blame external circumstances or other people, but the truth is far more uncomfortable. The greatest obstacle to growth is often ourselves. Self-sabotage manifests in many forms. Some people procrastinate, delaying important work while focusing on trivial tasks. Others self-criticize, eroding confidence and preventing action. Some create unnecessary conflict, pushing away allies and loved ones. And many unconsciously choose partners, jobs, or habits that reinforce past failures. The common thread is a pattern, behavior rooted in old fears, insecurities, and unresolved emotional wounds. Greene emphasizes that recognizing these patterns is the first step toward freedom. The origins of self-sabotage are often traced back to early life. Childhood experiences, rejection, neglect, or trauma can create mental scripts that persist into adulthood. We internalize these experiences, forming beliefs like, "I am not worthy, I always fail," or "I cannot succeed without hurting someone." These subconscious programs repeat themselves in every major decision, turning personal growth into a battle with our own instincts. Understanding this is crucial because most people live in denial, unaware that their own habits and mindsets are the true source of their struggles. Greene explains that the path to breaking self-sabotage requires self-awareness and strategic introspection. We must observe ourselves objectively, without judgment, and identify recurring patterns of destructive behavior. Ask yourself, where do I repeatedly fail? What decisions or reactions cost me progress? Which fears or insecurities subtly guide my actions? By facing these questions honestly, we illuminate the mechanisms that drive self-sabotage. Once patterns are recognized, the next step is intervention and conscious choice. Greene advises adopting strategies that disrupt automatic behaviors. For instance, replace procrastination with structured planning, replace self-criticism with disciplined self-encouragement, and replace reactive conflict with deliberate communication. These shifts are rarely instant, they require patience, vigilance, and repeated practice. Yet, over time, they build momentum, turning conscious effort into habitual strength. Greene also highlights the importance of emotional mastery in overcoming self-sabotage. Emotions often act as hidden puppeteers, influencing decisions before rational thought can intervene. Anger, fear, jealousy, or shame can subtly push us toward destructive actions. By cultivating mindfulness and reflection, we gain the ability to observe these emotions without being controlled by them. This creates a space between stimulus and reaction, where conscious choice can replace reflexive patterns. The chapter closes with a profound insight: self-sabotage is not a permanent flaw, but a challenge to be mastered. Everyone possesses the capacity to change, provided they are willing to face their inner obstacles honestly. Greene emphasizes that those who recognize and dismantle their self-destructive habits gain freedom, power, and clarity. They stop being prisoners of their own instincts and begin living by intention, making decisions aligned with their highest goals. Chapter 9: the law of repression. Every human carries a hidden world inside themselves, a collection of emotions, desires, fears, and impulses that are often buried deep beneath the surface. Robert Greene calls this the law of repression, the tendency for people to push uncomfortable emotions out of conscious awareness. These hidden feelings do not disappear. Instead, they fester, influencing behavior in subtle and often destructive ways. What we suppress quietly shapes our thoughts, decisions, and interactions, often without our realization. Repression occurs for many reasons. Sometimes it is social conditioning, teaching us to hide anger, envy, or sexual desire. Other times it is self-preservation, a way to avoid guilt, shame, or conflict. Whatever the cause, repressed emotions are like a pressure cooker, they cannot remain contained forever. Over time, these feelings build up, seeking release. When the pressure becomes too great, emotions erupt in unexpected ways, sudden anger, irrational decisions, panic, or passive-aggressive behavior. Greene warns that the more you ignore or suppress your inner world, the more it will express itself in uncontrolled and unpredictable forms. The consequences of repression extend beyond the individual. People often misinterpret others' behavior, thinking someone is calm, rational, or stable, only to witness sudden outbursts or inexplicable actions. Greene explains that by learning to read the signs of repression, you gain insight into the hidden emotional life of others. Small gestures, recurring complaints, passive resistance, or subtle avoidance can reveal suppressed feelings before they explode. Observing these cues allows you to understand motivations, predict reactions, and navigate relationships with clarity and foresight. Repression also affects your own life. By denying or avoiding uncomfortable emotions, you create internal tension that undermines decision-making, creativity, and fulfillment. Greene emphasizes the importance of acknowledging and integrating suppressed emotions rather than ignoring them. By facing your fears, anger, envy, or desires, you transform potentially destructive energy into conscious action. This process is not about indulgence or surrender to impulse, it is about awareness and disciplined expression. Emotional intelligence begins with recognizing what you are repressing. Greene provides strategies to manage repression effectively. First, self-reflection and journaling allow you to identify hidden feelings and track recurring emotional patterns. Second, safe emotional outlets, creative work, physical activity, or honest conversations, help release tension constructively. Third, mindful observation of others trains you to detect signs of repression in social interactions, giving you a strategic advantage in communication and influence. By understanding both your own hidden emotions and those of others, you gain power over the subtle currents that shape human behavior. The chapter concludes with a crucial insight. Repression is universal, but it does not have to control you. Those who learn to recognize and channel hidden emotions navigate life with greater clarity, empathy, and effectiveness. By confronting what is buried inside, you turn potential volatility into conscious strength. You stop being ruled by unseen forces and begin making decisions with awareness and intentionality. Greene reminds us that mastering the inner world is a cornerstone of mastering human nature itself. Chapter 10, The Law of Envy. Envy is one of the most potent and destructive forces in human nature. It lurks quietly in the hearts of individuals, often hidden behind smiles, politeness, or even admiration. Robert Greene calls this the law of envy, explaining that envy is not only common but inevitable, it is the feeling that arises when someone else possesses something we lack, whether it is success, talent, recognition, beauty, or freedom. It is subtle, often unacknowledged, and yet it can shape behavior in powerful ways, leading to sabotage, resentment, or passive aggression. Greene points out that envy often masquerades as other emotions. People may present it as concern, advice, humor, or competitiveness, but underneath lies a desire to diminish or compete with what others have. This makes envy particularly dangerous. It is difficult to detect until it erupts, and by then, it can have lasting consequences. In personal relationships, envy can destroy trust and breed hostility. In professional settings, it can undermine collaboration, block promotions, or fuel covert rivalry. Understanding envy, Greene argues, is essential for navigating human interactions with clarity and self-protection. One of the key insights of this chapter is that envy is universal. Everyone experiences it at some level. What separates the destructive from the constructive is awareness and control. Those who fail to recognize envy in themselves or others are often blindsided by its effects. Greene emphasizes the importance of learning to spot envy before it manifests, both internally and externally. Subtle signs may include excessive criticism, frequent comparisons, backhanded compliments, gossip, or attempts to overshadow achievements. Recognizing these cues allows you to respond strategically rather than reactively. Greene also explains that envy can be transformed into a positive force. When you feel envy, it often points to something you desire deeply, an area for growth or personal development. Instead of letting envy breed resentment or sabotage, you can use it as motivation and inspiration. By channeling the energy of envy into self-improvement, skill development, or creative expression, you turn a potentially destructive emotion into a constructive one. This requires honesty with oneself, emotional discipline, and a willingness to confront personal inadequacies without judgment. The chapter provides practical strategies for dealing with envy in others. Greene advises maintaining composure, avoiding direct confrontation, and reframing interactions to minimize triggers. Expressing humility, gratitude, and generosity can reduce envy, while subtle flattery and acknowledgement of others' achievements can disarm jealousy. By responding thoughtfully rather than defensively, you protect relationships, influence social dynamics, and maintain personal stability. The chapter concludes with a profound insight: envy is a natural human instinct, but it does not have to control your life. By recognizing envy early, understanding its roots, and transforming its energy into productive action, you gain not only self-mastery but also the ability to navigate social and professional environments with grace and strategic advantage. Greene reminds us that the mastery of envy is a cornerstone of emotional intelligence, allowing us to protect ourselves, elevate our performance, and inspire rather than destroy. Chapter 11: The Law of Grandiosity. Every human being carries the potential for greatness, but along with it comes a subtle and dangerous trap: the tendency to overestimate our own abilities, importance, and invincibility. Robert Greene calls this the law of grandiosity, the force that inflates ego and blinds people to reality. Grandiosity is seductive; it makes us feel powerful, confident, and untouchable. But unchecked, it leads to reckless decisions, alienation, and eventual downfall. Greene explains that the higher one rises, the more vulnerable one becomes to this self-deception. Grandiosity often starts with small successes. A compliment, an achievement, or recognition can feed the ego, creating a feedback loop that distorts perception. People begin to believe their talents are limitless and their judgment infallible. This illusion fosters overconfidence, impatience, and a sense of entitlement. Greene warns that grandiosity is rarely obvious to the individual experiencing it; it often masquerades as confidence, ambition, or vision. And yet, those around the person may sense the imbalance, leading to subtle resistance, envy, or eventual backlash. The consequences of grandiosity extend to every aspect of life. Leaders can overreach, investors can take dangerous risks, and relationships can be strained by arrogance or insensitivity. Even highly talented individuals may sabotage themselves by ignoring warning signs or refusing to listen to feedback. Greene emphasizes that the illusion of invincibility is a silent enemy, one that grows with success and visibility. Recognizing it early is essential for longevity, effectiveness, and personal growth. Greene provides strategies to counteract grandiosity and remain grounded. First, he stresses self-awareness. Regularly examining your own abilities, limitations, and motivations. Honest reflection and humility are powerful tools against inflated ego. Second, seek feedback from trusted sources. Surround yourself with people who will speak the truth, even when it is uncomfortable. Third, stay connected to reality by observing patterns, considering consequences, and avoiding over-reliance on charm, reputation, or past successes. Another important principle is temper confidence with patience and discipline. Grandiosity often drives impulsive actions, but careful deliberation and strategic thinking counterbalance the ego's desire for immediate recognition or dominance. Greene also notes the value of gratitude and perspective. Remembering your roots, acknowledging contributions of others, and understanding the broader context of your achievements helps maintain humility and emotional balance. The chapter concludes with a powerful insight: grandiosity is a natural tendency, but it can be managed. Those who rise high without falling into arrogance cultivate self-awareness, humility, and strategic discipline. They understand that true power lies not in inflated ego, but in grounded confidence, careful planning, and the ability to learn from reality rather than imagining themselves above it. Greene reminds us that staying grounded is the key to lasting influence, resilience, and meaningful achievement. Chapter 12: The Law of Gender Rigidity. Human beings carry within themselves a blend of masculine and feminine traits, yet society often imposes rigid expectations about how these traits should be expressed. Robert Greene calls this the law of gender rigidity, explaining that many people limit themselves by identifying exclusively with either masculine or feminine behaviors. This rigidity constrains creativity, emotional intelligence, and power. By failing to integrate both sides of the personality, individuals miss the opportunity to access the full spectrum of human potential. Masculine traits, logic, assertiveness, decisiveness, and focus, are highly valued in many cultures, especially in professional and leadership contexts. Feminine traits, empathy, intuition, adaptability, and emotional awareness, are often undervalued or dismissed. Greene argues that the greatest leaders, artists, and influencers are those who can balance both sets of qualities, combining analytical reasoning with emotional insight, strength with sensitivity, and ambition with intuition. Rigidity, on the other hand, produces imbalance, excessive aggression without empathy, or excessive passivity without direction, both of which undermine effectiveness. This law also reveals itself in personal relationships and social interactions. People who suppress their natural traits may struggle with self-expression, emotional connection, or strategic influence. Those who are overly rigid may face resistance, misunderstanding, or isolation. Greene emphasizes that understanding and integrating gender traits is not about conforming to stereotypes, it is about leveraging the full range of human qualities to adapt to situations, understand others, and achieve influence. Greene provides strategies for overcoming rigidity and achieving balance. Self-awareness: identify which traits you naturally favor and which you suppress. Understanding your default tendencies is the first step toward integration. Deliberate practice: actively cultivate traits that do not come naturally. For instance, develop emotional sensitivity if you are highly analytical, or strengthen assertiveness if you are overly accommodating. Observation and emulation. Study individuals who successfully blend traits and learn from their behaviors, strategies, and interactions. Situational adaptation: flexibility allows you to express different traits depending on context. In negotiation, empathy may be powerful; in crisis, decisiveness is critical. The chapter also highlights the dangers of societal pressures and internalized expectations. Many people limit themselves because of cultural norms or fear of judgment, suppressing traits that could make them more effective, charismatic, or resilient. Greene encourages embracing the full range of qualities as a source of personal power, creativity, and influence. By moving beyond rigid definitions of masculinity or femininity, individuals can act with authenticity, adaptability, and strategic advantage. The chapter concludes with a key insight. True power comes from integration, not suppression. Those who understand their own masculine and feminine traits, and know when and how to express them, can navigate complex social dynamics, form deeper connections, and achieve far greater influence than those who remain rigidly confined by tradition or expectation. Greene reminds us that human nature is fluid, and the ability to harmonize inner traits is essential to mastery, fulfillment, and enduring effectiveness. Conclusion. The laws of human nature. Understanding human nature is not a one-time lesson, it is a lifelong journey. Robert Greene's The Laws of Human Nature has shown us that humans are guided by emotions, desires, patterns, and instincts that often operate beneath the surface. From envy and grandiosity to repression and self-sabotage, every chapter has revealed the hidden forces shaping our thoughts, decisions, and relationships. The key to mastery lies not in denying these forces, but in recognizing, understanding, and channeling them with awareness and intention. Mastery of human nature begins with yourself. By observing your own patterns, controlling impulses, and transforming destructive tendencies into productive energy, you gain clarity and freedom. You stop being a passive participant in life and begin acting with conscious purpose. At the same time, understanding the patterns in others gives you insight, foresight, and influence, allowing you to navigate social dynamics, protect yourself from manipulation, and build meaningful connections. Ultimately, Greene reminds us that human behavior is predictable once you understand its underlying laws. The more aware you become, the more empowered you are to act strategically, avoid common pitfalls, and seize opportunities that others overlook. Mastery of human nature is not about domination, it is about seeing clearly, responding wisely, and moving through life with intention, empathy, and subtle power. By embracing these laws, you unlock a kind of insight that transforms both your personal and professional life. You gain the ability to influence without coercion, lead without force, and understand without judgment. In the end, the laws of human nature is a guide to becoming fully aware, fully intentional, and fully human. A roadmap to wisdom, resilience, and enduring influence.